Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller. I am joined today by Paige from Hoyden Branding. Hoyden, right? I got that right?
You got that right.
All right, Paige. So tell us a little bit about Hoyden. And well, actually, before that, let's start with you. Because you have a great backstory and I want people to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, it kind of actually shifts into the professional side. So we'll just start from there. My name is Paige Fuoco. I am the owner and CEO of Hoyden Branding. Personal background, I was born and raised in Canada, just Ontario, so pretty close to the US. I moved over here to Michigan to go to school at Adrian College, where I played hockey for 4 years. I've been playing
Ice hockey, right? For everybody. Yes.
I'm, the Canadian in me just assumes
Right.
I forget that most American people who ask, they're like field hockey, and it's always confusing me. But ice hockey, I've been playing since I was 5, kind of a rite of passage when you grow up in Canada. But I came over here to Michigan where I played for 4 years. I met my husband and stayed. I'm now proud to say I'm an American citizen, so it's super exciting. I've been here since 2013. So I'm over my 10-year mark, feeling really aged now that I said that out loud. But yeah, that's kind of my segue into my professional side. Is my senior year of college, I got an internship with Hoyden, which at the time was Hoyden Creative Group. And I jumped in, started kind of wearing any hat they wanted to give me. I just wanted to make a name for myself. I've always known if I was going to do one thing in life, it was have a really good career and work really hard. I mean, I was some sort of captain on pretty much every team I played on, which it drove me to want to be a leader. And I've always been a team player. So having a team under me has been kind of the dream. So I started there, kind of climbed the ladder, so to speak, wore, like I said, many hats. I started off kind of kicking it in the design space. I was general designer, senior, and then I switched over to our strategist role. So what that entails is essentially you are, the client account manager, but you're wearing you have a little bit more on your plate than that. You are actually driving the strategy for each client and their brand and making sure that it comes to life and goes to market the way that it needs to. Kind of that liaison, right, between the client and the creative team. I'm in a lucky position where with my design background, I can do both at once, which is a blessing and a curse because it makes it hard to delegate.
Yeah.
Something I'm learning as a business owner now. But I shifted into that. And then shortly after COVID, I sat down with my boss and I was like, listen, I want to grow. I want to see any opportunity I can to do so. And she looked at me and was like, well, that's funny because I was going to tell you today that, I'm looking to sell. And I was wondering if you would be interested in purchasing. And it was a no-brainer on the spot. I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And what was supposed to be a 3 to 5 year plan rapidly became a 2-year plan. Our valuation we completed in March of 23, and I bought January 1st of 24. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, there was some other stuff happening, of course, beforehand, but that was that transition period. It was quick. So I had to really grind and put my head down and pretend like I knew what I was doing for the first, up until now, I would say. It's only been about 14 months. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. At one point had an office, which was great. But when COVID happened, we realized, we can do everything from home. And I will say, I can't speak for everyone, but the productivity working from home is through the roof because I will chat, being able to just put your head down and have that separation between your workspace and your home space is a challenge, but I have found it to be very productive and allowed us to be very successful.
Awesome. That's great. So now, right, you had your arms around this thing for 14 months and you've went from Hoyden Creative to Hoyden Branding. So you've made some changes. Talk to us about those.
Awesome. Yeah. So switched the entity to be Hoyden Branding. We were already going in that direction. we don't have a DBA as Hoyden, but everyone just kind of refers to us as Hoyden. So we kind of rolled with that. We did a rebranding of ourselves, which, gosh, doing a rebrand for a brand development company, you'd think would be smooth. It was very timely because everyone had an idea and, we're perfectionists at heart anyway. So when we did that, we decided, let's just stick with Hoyden. And then, when that switch happened, I changed the entity. But I think the biggest shift between the two has been, at one point, it was very marketing service focused. And there's just something about marketing that's just kind of like people just kind of brush it aside, like, oh, you do marketing. It's like, yeah, that's such a broad topic. We honed in on what we were really good at, which was designing brands and coming up with a strategy for those brands. And like I said before, how to go to market with them and do it strategically, efficiently, fill in all the words like that. But yeah, it's been really fun. We've really refined our process to be a well-oiled machine that really does work. And I've got some stories to share on that as well. But yeah, as the shift happened, the team has shifted. There's 2 on my team now of 6 that were on the team prior to me purchasing. So I've had to let someone go. I've kind of done it all in the last year and learned a ton along the way. But I would say just that transition from creative to branding has really just been not only, of course, the brand piece, but finding the right types of clients that, one, are willing to pay a premium price for a premium
Absolutely.
Product, which is a huge challenge, especially in today's world. But yeah, finding those clients and then finding the clients that want to actually be a partner. I've had to break up, so to speak, with some clients that eventually just kind of get seen in the marketing world as a glorified assistant. And that is not what we're in the business of doing. So one of the biggest challenges.
That's not always easy, right? But yeah.
It's not. It really isn't. But there's something very, empowering or you get that peace of mind knowing that, listen, there's always going to be more money to find, but my employees and my mental health, we have to be coming to work and be excited about work, not dreading the client who wants to be tedious we always say like pixel pushing, like one little notch here, and we need to just have the freedom to be able to do what we can do. And it's all about finding the people who are receptive to that and want to, give it back that way. Cause that's how we treat others how you want to be treated concept. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's been one of the bigger shifts is just, and that's a challenge when you buy, right? Because I obtained all of our previous clients, which I was the strategist for most of them, but I wasn't making the business decisions. So for me to have to go back and, increase the price or have late fees implemented, things like that maybe people don't want to hear. Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but we're finding the right types of people and it's just great. It's becoming a beautiful thing.
That's awesome. And listen, I applaud you because the hardest thing to do is to focus and, as other people in the marketing world will say, niche down. But what you're doing that, and that's the smartest thing because it allows you to differentiate in that space. And so I couldn't be in more agreement for the direction you're going.
Thank you. And I like that you just said, because that was a point I wanted to bring up about niching. I feel like any agency owner, if they're listening to this, is going to fall out of their chair when I say like the last thing that we want to do is niche in an industry, because that's like, you're supposed to niche because then you become an expert. And that's all great. But what I have found is being more generalist in the industries that we serve allows us to come to the table with different ideas. We don't get stuck in a bubble of like, this is the world we live in and we don't really know what's going outside, what's going on outside of it. With being more generalized and having, we have clients from a cigar lounge all the way to, an insurance firm to astronomy. Like we're literally all over the place with our clients.
See, Paige, I think what you're doing in branding, you have to be more generalist because it's almost like a consultant. You need to have seen all the different things and bring the right things in. A marketing agency that's service-based, that's doing websites or SEO and stuff, I get why they niche because they have to be able to repent. What you're doing though, you bring strategy to the table, and that I totally agree. You do want to be more, I don't want to even say generalist. You want a breadth of different experiences and things to pull from.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And I will say, SEO, your website stuff, that's all pieces. We do all that too. It's just not the thing that we want to be known for. And when it comes to web dev or, the writing piece is always something that we often outsource, or, AI as a first draft is always amazing. So yeah, that piece is being okay to say, listen, we don't actually do that in-house, but I've got a partner who does, is great. So
again, now there's the trusted relationship of why people want to work with companies like you right there, right? You bring things, vetted resources to the table for those things that are secondary after the brand strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of pieces, right? And again, with that more like broad industry portfolio, so to speak, we not only have a lot of different outside, like we just can't warrant having a full-time person for every service. We would be a massive company and we're an agency of 6 in-house, but that doesn't mean we can't use, vendors to our disposal. It allows us to position ourselves a little bit more just full service, So yeah, there's a lot with it, but that's kind of where we're at as far as that goes.
No, that's awesome. So now you look down the road, right? And you have this vision, right, for Hoyden. What does that look like, and where? And again, layer in some stories as you think that they're relevant. But really, what I want to understand is, because I got some really cool follow-up questions about branding. So yeah, let's get into that and your vision.
Yeah. So this is great timing. I'm actually doing a course with the Entrepreneurial Leap. It's an extension of EOS, and we've been challenged lately to do a lot of this, 90-day, 1 year, 3 year, 10-year stuff. And one of the biggest things is the debate in my head is, yeah, I want to grow. Like I said, my biggest thing has always been building a career for myself and making sure that I have done all that I can do and have the freedom to be able to travel and spend time with my husband, my family, friends, all that good stuff. But I love, love, love the boutique atmosphere that we have. Like we are, there's 6 of us. I would love to grow. I think my cap's probably going to be around 20 is my goal eventually, but we're a family. Like I will talk all day about how much I love my team and how important they are. I wouldn't be where I am without that team. Yeah. And we've got we are quite literally a little family, and it's amazing. We are a part of each other's lives.
Here's your hockey background coming back into play. Team sports, huge. Yeah.
I know, it really is. And, I try to walk that line because I always joke, put on my fake mustache for BHR and I change my glasses for accounting because I'm I'm the one who's doing all that. But I have to remind myself, okay, yes, this is a work environment, but it's okay to have personal relationships with one another. And it allows us to be we communicate so much better. We feel life happens, shit happens. You got to leave and deal with life. That's okay. Like, I don't want it to be a corporate feel where, you're worried about missing a couple hours because life got in the way. So I really do want to make sure no matter what happens that we keep that atmosphere. And if there comes a day, which there will be a day where I have another company or another entity of some sort, and I need someone else to be the one to do the things for Hoyden, that will be my number one. Is you need to make sure you're a mirror image of how I think when it comes to the atmosphere and the culture of the company, because there's nothing more rewarding than hearing my team say, like, you're going to have to get rid of me because I'm not going anywhere, so
That's
it's
awesome.
Just goosebumps. Yeah. They're amazing, and they work their asses off, and yeah, it makes our clients very, very happy. I'm not sure if this is going to be a follow-up, but I do want to talk about my one client that we had recently, speaking of family, just because has a lot of
roll right into it. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he has, I think the value piece too, thinking back on your previous question about, the different industries and finding the right clients, like sharing those values is so important, because even if you don't realize they're the same, eventually you realize that, even though if you don't realize it at first, eventually you come to know that you do share a lot of those like moral values. And the client I'm about to reference is one of those. So his name is James. His company is the Founders Chair, which is an event-driven model where he brings a group of founders to meet with a group of funders a couple times a year. Last year we did 3. He vets the founders, interviews, that kind of stuff to figure out who the best ones are. And then he has a team of seasoned investors, VCs, angels, all that come to the table and hopefully invest. And if not, be seen as a mentor, like actually have the opportunity to educate and be there to help them grow. Because, to your point earlier, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to start. It's hard to grow. And they've been there. So it's a really cool business model. But when he first came to us, he was like, listen, I have an idea. I've been trying AI to try to bring this idea to life for months. He's like, I've been paid plans. I've tried countless platforms, and nothing is getting it where I need it to go. So he got introduced to us by another client, and we rolled right into our brand development process with him and got it to the point where he always says to us, he's like, listen, you do what AI can't do. Like, if anyone thinks that AI is going to replace this, like they're losing it, kind of thing, which, okay, AI can do a lot of stuff, but the human element of creative thinking and tying the pieces together is something that's just never going to go away.
Yeah.
He's like we always joke, he's like the golden child client, because not only does he see that value, but also unique perspective, like insurance industry, you don't see this type of fun type of branding, So
Right.
not only that, but then he's like, you know what you need to do and I know what I need to do. So like, let's work together and let's get it done. And it has really made me realize the type of client that I'm after. You don't realize it until it's in front of you, kind of thing, right? You only know.
Sometimes you got to experience it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So his
And now
business.
he's like a lighthouse model type client that you want to find more of, right? Absolutely.
Yep. We've turned him. He's almost like a verb now. It's like we can James it. Yeah. So anyway, he's great, and that was just a really good example of the AI piece in general. And I'll use AI with it. Like I said before, first draft, right, with ChatGPT or any AI tool, just to be a brain dump, a tool to get your thoughts out and like spit it back to me. Let's see what, does this start any brainstorm on another piece, So we do that a lot. And for him, like, he's like, yeah, if that makes my money go further, then do what you need to do, And I will say that's been a challenge personally, is that acceptance of using AI and not wanting clients to be like, well, I would just do it myself then. There's that little bit of almost imposter syndrome that you feel when you think about that, but it's not about replacing, it's about enhancing, right? It's that,
as we were talking about before, they're digital coworkers, digital co-pilots, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And it's again, delegation, whether it's to a robot or a human, either way, it can be tough.
Well, but you know what, Paige, this is, and I had a bunch of people say this, like, you know how many times your team or yourself you've had to start with a blank canvas. AI gives you maybe a 70% starting point, and then the human takes over from there to add the value. So think about how much more productive that person is by not having to waste their time on that 70%, because they were going to get there anyway. It was going to be tedious.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The value add is in that last 20 to 30%. That's what makes it special anyway.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And the more you train these things, the more efficient it is, right?
Yes.
We kind of do it where every client's got a broken out chat, right? So it can continue to learn and learn and learn. And it's beautiful. And to your point, that 70% is always the most time consuming, because you're just trying to get something out. And especially working as a remote company, you need something to bounce ideas off of. And though we're hopping on huddles all the time, we're always communicating, as much as we can, you need a sounding board. So we definitely use it as much as we can in that space. But it's definitely, it's a work smarter, not harder thing. And it's beautiful if you do it right. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit now about, now that you have James, right? And you know what a good client looks like, right? How does it change your strategy, right, on growth, right? And we're always about things like this on how it changes the founder's, outlook on growth and how you want to grow.
Yeah. Well, it has definitely made me realize that it's quality over quantity. I know for the longest time it was, I'd be lying if I said I still didn't have this mentality where it's like, I'm going to go sell. But selling a bunch of small things or selling a few big things, and being able to stay with that breadth of industry knowledge, but being able to pare it down to focus on big, major clients in different spaces that have the money to spend. And, like I said, just the willingness to expand, that has been the biggest mindset shift, is just, okay, it's more beneficial for us to have less paying more, but that opens up a can of worms with challenges, right? Like I said before, today's world, it's expensive out there, and people, the first thing that always gets slashed or put to the side is the marketing effort, which
always
is insane to me. It's so insane to me. Especially,
you're basically turning the faucet off on the front end. Like, how do you do that with sales? I've never understood that.
Right. And then there's the whole, tale as old as time on sales and marketing, for whatever reason, butting heads. You think that they would be just,
you think they'd be like this, right?
Yeah. That's the dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a constant battle, and you got to work together in that areas, both areas, to be able to be efficient. But yeah, like I said, it's hard to find the people who are willing to put that spend out there. But yeah, I don't know. I learn something every day, and clients teach me, my team teaches me, my husband, people just day-to-day life teach you something new. And I try really hard just to maintain very observant of everyone's experience, whether it's my team or not, just so that I can take that and, ideally implement it to continue to grow strategically, right? Because another challenge that everyone knows is scaling, and scaling is hard.
Scaling is hard.
It's hard.
Yes.
Luckily, I don't know who instilled this in me, because my parents were always really good at it, but I do remember them telling me, like, you can spend your money, right? Like, I've always been a saver. I've been like immediately. So my cash flow grew really quickly, which has set us up for success for sure. And I've been able to put that aside and be able to hire in talent that, eventually, even if we're a little overstaffed, that's okay, because now we can take a deep breath, and be able to transition. So yeah, a lot of things to weigh when it comes to scaling as well, but always trying to just be, have my eyes and ears open to change, which is another thing that a lot of people, veer away from. So
yeah, totally agree. One of the things, so that I wanted to ask you a kind of a little bit of a off-topic question around branding. And one of the things that's changing with where we are with social media, and especially podcasting, right, is and a lot of founders and CEOs have been hesitant, right, because they've never had to personally brand. Mm-hmm. And that is changing. The landscape of that is changing dramatically, like overnight. And podcasting is huge, as you know, and it's just one element, right? But where founders have typically kind of been, hey, I'm just the CEO or of this entity, right? And that still exists. But the new thing is they really also have to grow their personal brand, because that's how other people across industries get to know them. It's how connections are being made. It's not like going to a networking group, right? That used to be the thing. Now it's to get your personal brand out. And so how do you advise other founders and CEOs on how to do that? Because I've talked to a few that are a little hesitant, but they know they have to do it, right? Totally. And so I think someone like yourself, who's right at the forefront of branding, can probably have a good, insight into that.
Yeah. And it totally depends on what stage they're in too. It's not a one size fits all. Overarching, sure. The idea of what you need to do and how to do it is pretty general, but the way, the pieces that you use to do it differ quite a bit, whether you're starting from scratch or you're trying to make a personal brand based off of a corporate brand or something else, that was started behind you, so to speak. Yeah, I would say from the getting yourself out there, kind of shifting this networking type of mentality to more online, getting in front of people virtually, like what we're doing right now, is just the power of engagement. I tell my clients, social media is just a piece, again, to the puzzle that we do with a lot of our marketing heavy clients that we've completed brand with. And I always tell them, I'm like, yeah, the company page, that's not how LinkedIn is going to measure your success. It's measuring it by one-on-one people interacting with other people. Yeah, the company page, it has to be there. You have to have that as a credible source, but you as an individual need to put that effort out. And sometimes they're like, hey, here's the keys, sign in as me, be me, interact on my behalf. And sometimes it's a matter of like, hey, this is the structure on how to do it. Go make it happen. So yeah, when it comes to the personal brand, everything in branding is going to be consistency, right? You've got to be consistent and true to you. You can paint a picture of something all you want, but if that's not who you are authentically, most people are going to be able to smell the bullshit.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about being that, and a lot of reflecting. You've got to think about this stuff before you do it, so that you can make sure you're being 100% authentic and giving people not only what they're going to need as a like if you're selling, for instance, you got to make sure you meet them in the middle. But yeah, my biggest thing I tell everyone is just make sure you're being consistent and make sure you're taking the time and dedicating time to doing it, because any business owner or C-suite individual is going to find an excuse not to. Guilty. I do it all the time. My team has to be like, Paige, stop and go do what you need to do for the company. Like it just goes last in my case, right? But yeah, the personal branding piece it's fun. I always remind everyone, I'm like, have fun with it. Like this is where you get to like slap a logo on yourself, kind of,
So one of the things I did, so a friend of mine who's a C-suite executive at a large company, and I said to him, I'm like, when you get into those relationships, right? When you're meeting a new potential client, right? And they're a big company or a pharma company, right? And you're meeting them. I go, your product is not what closes it, because you're already at the table because you have a good product, right? But the relationship you build and the rapport you build in that room is there. But imagine using mediums like this to where you build that outside of that as well. I'm like, how can that hurt? And to me, that's one of the pieces I think people get lost on. And I feel like when they work with someone like you in the branding aspect, that could be immensely powerful in helping them close a lot more deals. Because again, it's the know, like, and trust. It's the old adage, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I love that you said like the relationship piece. I mean, on my end, I'm like, you can teach a tool. You can't teach personality and connection. Like that's something that you have or you don't have to be able to maintain those relationships. I'm a firm believer in that. And that's a great point. I mean, you wouldn't be sitting at the table if there wasn't something already that got you there. So now it's that point of hitting it home. And yeah, just again, it all goes back to like taking that time to sit down with yourself and do I encourage people to do the same types of activities that we do with company branding for themselves. I'm like, yeah, all you're doing is really changing it from a corporate to a personal. You're still going to run through those questions. You're still going to poke holes in ideas. We always say it's kind of what we're here for, is to like, no, because what about this, right? You want to be able to play devil's advocate. You want to be able to figure out the challenge, like anticipate the challenges ahead of time,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. So, all right, now let me ask you, before we get into our last couple of questions, I want to ask you one more, is as you look down the next 1 to 2 years, with where AI and data and automations and things are changing, right? We're opening up more communication channels than ever, right? There's more social media platforms coming on. So all of that, right, makes all of this immensely more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you look down the next 1 to 2 years, right? Because I don't think anybody can look out further than that. It's why we don't do 5 and 10 year plans anymore, just because I think they're just going to change.
Yeah.
Right.
COVID taught us that, if anything.
Exactly. That was the deep end of the pool. We all got thrown in, right? But if you look down the next 1 to 2 years, how do you see the landscape changing? Because again, you have a really good bird's eye view across industries and how branding impacts all of this. Again, like I told you before we jumped on, like podcasts are growing, and this is just one medium, right? There's all kinds of things growing, but what do you see? And what advice would you give?
Yeah. So, oh God, it's a loaded question. I will say,
I've been good at those, the loaded questions.
No kidding. I will say that one of the, start from a challenge perspective in the industry, everyone is paying to get in front of everyone else. It's organic is hard. It's something that we have to remind clients, like, unless you have a budget to spend, think about all the other people's, think about the big corporations spending $10,000 a week on Google ads. Your $500 a month budget is not going to compete with that. You know what I mean? So educating people to know where to put their effort or money is big. But how I see things shifting is, we look at content, and I was actually just talking to my senior designer about this morning, the shift of content, even from being at one point, it was all about the look and feel, the aesthetic, those types of things. And now it's shifting to everything's entertainment based. Like think about your content, like YouTube, okay, that's the king of kings when it comes to social media, or social media won, but it's a search engine tool now. Like it does everything you need.
Yeah.
That is now entertaining as hell. Podcasts are video, like half the time you're on video, right?
Absolutely.
It's really not audio anymore. So we're turning into this, feeding people more content that they can get lost in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Your static posting, your things like that. It's good to have quantity, right? Like get your posts out there. Algorithms are just changing so fast that you get one thing figured out, and then you have to go back to the drawing board.
Right, because it switches, right?
Switches so quickly. And I think that something to keep in mind across industries is maintaining your adaptability. Don't get stuck in knowing one thing and sticking to it. It might be good and it might work, but you can't get discouraged if 2 months from now it stops working because they change the way the algorithm is processing it, or, whatever that looks like. So yeah. And I think if we're thinking about, the branding piece and how that's going to shift, the AI component, I think, will continue to grow from a messaging, a more personalized approach to branding. But I will say, I really don't see it changing much when it comes to the design space, because like I said, the creative element to the human brain and how we're connecting the dots between things. I don't know if you've ever AI generated an image before, but find me an image where they have the hand correct. Like it's every
No,
time
yeah,
you
it's
got
not there yet.
someone.
I've seen, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's like you can't sleep at night after seeing what they did to someone's eyes. It's like it's freaky stuff, right? And just yeah, it's going to continue to grow, but there's certain things that you just can't automate, and you can't have artificial intelligence doing. So that piece I think will stay. But to your point about podcasts growing, I see a world where people start to really embrace this like festival style events. I feel like a lot of people are starting to do this festival stuff, whether actually another podcast I listen to, that's what they're doing, is it's a podcasting festival where they're getting creators from all over in the space. They're going to have the festival style set up, but it's all around podcast. Never in a million years did I think that would be a thing. It's always just
No, me neither.
know,
Yeah.
so I think that this more experience-based, bigger, bolder type of event planning, that kind of stuff is definitely going to play a role. And yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around, because you think how far we've come in the last, 5 years
Yeah.
and how quickly things are changing. But yeah, and I don't know, did I answer that enough? I feel
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Because one of the things, and I love that you touched on the community thing, because what we've, our goal, I think I told you about this, is, and anybody that's been a podcast guest of mine knows that we're turning this into a tool. But our next thing is, as part of the Founders Cast, is to create virtual events for founders and CEOs for the same reason, right? We want to be the replacement, and only because they've asked for it, right? It is the replacement for the ability to network and collaborate with other founders and CEOs, right? The nice part about, to your point about COVID getting thrown in the deep end of the pool, it's opened us up, because usually networking events were local, right? Or if you went national, who could make it then, right? So, but with virtual, you can get exposed to so many more people. So I do see the virtual and the community aspect being a big bonus coming out of this.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, oh gosh, yeah, there's just it's hard, because some industries are losing that. Like we've got a client that is in the bridal world, right? So not only your dress shop, but your actual physical going in to try on gowns, but then you have the hosting of the wedding, and people are doing way more unique out there, maybe a little bit more intimate. Like we're out of this traditional type of era, and people are doing things that are worth making content around in their personal lives, not just business. So I think about that, and I think, okay, so on one level, you've got like people don't want to do events or whatever. This bigger, everything's experience driven, which is what we always, that's branding. Like it's influencing the perception of something is what a strong brand is. And
Yeah.
that is the big thing. And people, I will say, I'm going to use James again as a reference, but the beautiful thing about him is, because of all the connections that he already has in his space, it takes off the weight of having to have you number one on organic search, because
Right.
that's not the model. The model is connections and spreading the word and making sure people have such a good experience that they tell their counterparts, like, listen, you got to get in on this. His goal, we times 6 his investment goal last year. So very big success out of what, his aim was to have $1 million in investment for his founders, and they did 6. So that alone just goes to show, based on the brand started at the beginning, we had 1 year. The first event was 3 years into the brand's, live life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why I always encourage like making those connections and, sifting through the noise of people paying, because everyone pays to play, and you got to find that organic connection with people so that you don't have to worry about the organic, like SEO effort type of thing. So kind
Totally
of a full
agreed.
circle. Yeah.
Totally agreed. All right. Well, I told you I was going to ask you 2 questions at the end, right?
Yes.
One,
Yeah.
what's something that Paige has done, either personally or for work, with AI that you think other founders and CEOs would find really interesting?
Yeah. So a few things with work, it all kind of blends together at this point, but with work, I will say I use Perplexity a lot. Perplexity, for those who don't know, is an AI search engine, which has been a great tool to be able to accumulate a lot of information and source that data. That's the one thing I love about it, is it sources everything that it pulls. And then
I do love that too.
yeah,
It's
it's
awesome.
great. And then
Yeah.
you're able to actually know, okay, so this is a legitimate thing that they're telling me, especially looking into trends, looking into what are people caring more about now when it comes to XYZ. That is a huge tool for us to be able to just help come up with content ideas for the client that is going to be impactful. And again, if you can assume that people are searching what you want them to search, but until you look at the data, it's just an assumption. You're wasting your time, right? So making sure you're speaking your customer's language is very critical. So we use that a lot. And I will say a tool, or a process, I should say, of that is using Perplexity to find out the information you're wanting to know, taking that, moving it into a tool such as ChatGPT, where you've already built this knowledge base. It knows the client, it knows how to speak on behalf of the client. And then you drop that in as a precursor to whatever you're doing. So it's kind of this, you're using multiple AI tools together to spit out that draft that, to your point, is 70% of the way there, and letting that other 30% be the human element of polishing, correcting, making sure, let's be honest, sometimes it's a little out. We're like, all right, relax, ChatGPT. It's not that great. Like, I think sometimes it's a little exaggerated. So just making sure and then, yeah, I think those two are really, really great. I encourage everyone to use AI. Like, when you have a tool, one example is we use Typeform quite a bit for any of our forms, and the AI element, I went to chat and I said, which we call him Chad in-house, because
you should always name it. I think it makes it easier, right?
Totally. So people are like, oh, who did this? I'm like, oh, Chad did it.
Yeah.
So that's what we call him. Anyway, dropping all of our thoughts in there, spitting out the questions that we needed for a survey. And then the AI tool now in Typeform, you just tell it what you're thinking. And then it created like a 30-page survey just by dropping in that one little snippet of information.
See, and that would have been a complete waste of your team's time to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And my client's money. Like, that's my biggest thing, is like, yeah, it's wasting our time, but it's wasting your money. Like, I'm not in the business to waste money. So yeah, anyway, so tools like that, I always encourage everyone, like, try it out. Gmail with the Gemini, right? Polish up your email, see how it looks. Like, just give it a test run. And then, yeah, I would say, I mean, I've messed around in chat for, your travel plans, things like that. I have trust issues with the traveling piece. I feel like I just want to know I'm doing it right. Yeah, but that would be my biggest
trust
thing.
but verify, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, I don't want to show up to the airport for a flight that isn't actually a flight.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest thing. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else on the AI side that we've done. I mean, we're always looking into opportunities. But yeah, again, it's just, it all goes back to the work smarter, not harder, and give yourself that piece of, like, give yourself some grace that it's okay to use it. Cause I know, like I said, I have a little bit of, I don't know, just hesitation with saying that we use it, because I don't want people thinking they can do it themselves then. So getting over that, but
get over that, because I tell you, digital coworkers, you tell them that you're not wasting their time on menial tasks, you're doing the important stuff.
Right, exactly. And
Yes.
that's actually, so we talked earlier about agents, right? I'm actually working with someone getting started this week on building our own. So the idea of, like, the Perplexity and generating, every week spit out the things that are coming up in, online and trends and whatever, like, and then create this and create that, like those types of tools that you can build this out with a few API keys and a couple hours of someone's time. Like, time
It's
is
awesome.
money. Yeah. Yep. Use someone else. Like,
Yeah.
if they can do it quicker and better, pay them. So you do
and if you want to have a little fun, listen to my podcast with Alexander from Smith OS.
Okay.
Those agents are phenomenal. We use them all the time, and they're spot on. And you're right, that you just connect the API keys. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they get better and better and better. It's like, because I'm like, oh, I forgot to do, like, I was building one the other day and my client needed HIPAA, and I said, oh, make sure that the agent is HIPAA compliant in a specific industry. And it completely added a piece to that to make sure the whole thing. And I go, this is awesome, right? So yeah, the workflow stuff. And part of the things that we're going to be rolling out here for all you founders and CEOs is we're going to do some free virtual AI events, right? To show how to do this stuff. Because again, some of it is you just need to play, right? And figure it out. The last thing I wanted to tell you, or ask you, which is, right, pretty recently, you probably set out your next 12-month goals. So if I can give you a magic wand, Paige, and you can wave it and make that happen to meet or exceed those growth goals, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I would say I've been like in the background thinking of this, trying not to get distracted while I think about it this whole time. I think the biggest thing is if I could wave a wand and I say this lightly because I truly do love all of our clients, but get rid of the clients that aren't serving us, and in turn, we're not really serving them the way they need to be served.
Serving your vision, right?
Right. Yes. And just sift those out and be presented with. I'm not saying I won't let it get handed to me. Handling that part, fine, but I want to make those connections. So I would say getting in front, wave that wand, and I've got, let's just say 5 big companies willing to spend. And by spend, I mean like $100,000 a year, right? Like we're known to be very not underpriced, but we're low. We were also started in Southeast Michigan. So like expanding that kind of radius to where we can reach more people is big. But yeah, I would say we've got people, the small ones are out and all the new ones are bigger. They trust us. They are ready to spend. They're ready to grow. They're ready to learn and expect that we have that as well. So just making sure we have those good people. And that's just going to allow me to hire the more right people and scale appropriately. So
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Love
We'll
it.
see.
Yeah. You need to profile, 2 or 3 of your best clients and figure out what commonalities are and put that as your ideal, profile for a client and start targeting those people. Because I think that there's tools available today that allow you to do that. It was never easy to do. It's a lot easier with the amount of data we have access to today.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And listen, this has been phenomenal, Paige. I love your energy. I love everything that you're doing. And I think it's great. And we're definitely going to check back with you later in the year. But so I know we're going to put all the links on the podcast below, but for everybody that wants to get in touch with Hoyden, tell them how to do it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So first off, thank you so much. This was so fun, and I'm eager for the next one. I'll try to think of some of these hard-hitting questions ahead of time. But yeah, I would say, so Hoyden Branding is everything that we have. Our handles, our website. So that's HOYDEN branding. So Instagram, LinkedIn, obviously our website. We've got Facebook, but that's really just it's like you have to have it because Meta makes you.
Right. Meta makes you do it, right?
It's an obligatory, social platform. But LinkedIn, I always encourage people to reach out to me directly just because, like I said, personal connections is everything.
Absolutely.
So I got to walk the walk. And then, if anyone wants to connect with me via email or anything, it's just paige@hoydenbranding.com. And I'm happy to jump on phone calls, get to know one another. I just love building my own network, not only for me, but like for our agency as well. And I'd love to connect anyone, with my team and get things rolling. So that's the best way to do it. Just find us online.
Yeah. And I hate that the word agency has got bad connotations because of marketing companies that have done that, because you're so much more than that. And talking to you, and I just love what you guys are doing. And I know that big things are on the way for you guys. So this is fantastic.
You. That makes me so happy. I'm very proud to have heard that. Thank you so much.
You should be. You should be. Well, Paige, thank you again. And for everybody in the Future Proof Podcast Network and the Founders Cast Network, till our next episode, this has been your host, Brent Muller, and with Paige Fuoco from Hoyden Branding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.